Hi, this is Jason Augustowski, and this is my reflective vlog for week 7. This week went really well as well. We did a unit this week called Seasons of Love, based off of one of the most popular songs from the Broadway musical Rent, and we used that song as our theme for the whole week as we discussed love and as we discussed research. So each day of the week, we fulfilled a different research SOL 6.9. All of the different A, B, C, D, and E. We covered one subtopic each day, and that's leading to the students throughout the week and over the weekend creating a big research piece on love. Now, they were able to select anything under the topic of love that they wanted to talk about and that they wanted to prove, but I talked to them about making their research something that actually matters, not just I'm going to research what my dad thinks about love, for instance, and then a student just interviews her dad and finds out everything he thinks about love and writes a little paper about it. That's not what I was looking for, because I asked them to make sure that their conclusion, rather than being a summary, was a so what. I told them that that was the big question that I was going to ask them at the end of the piece, that they needed to be proving something. So perhaps rather than just interviewing their dad and finding out everything that he knows about love, maybe instead they were going to interview their dad, their mom, their sister, their brother, their extended family. And based on all of those interviews, and maybe some research online, maybe with like psychiatrists or people who study love or study human emotions, maybe put something together that's all about, I feel that family love is the most important kind of love in the world, and here's why, and here's what that tells us about society, or something like that, so that they're proving something very specific and they're speaking about something very specific. And the students seemed to respond very well to this. At first, they were a little stressed out because, most of their ideas were how I thought they would be. They were things like, oh, can I just talk about like what I think love means? And I was like, no, I want it to say something. Remember, the big question I'm going to ask you at the end of the piece is, so what? So they got that all in their heads, and they did a really good job over the course of the week conducting research, drafting, revising, editing, and this weekend, over the weekend, they're going to be polishing, and they're going to be turning in their final papers on Tuesday, which are 2 to 5 page papers, okay? So they know that it's a minimum of 2 pages, 12-point font, double-spaced, Times New Roman, 1-inch margins. Talked about MLA formatting, citations, talked about all that. We talked about plagiarism, we impressed the importance of them, and I talked about plagiarism in middle school and high school and college and in the real world, and I told them, the penalties and why we need to start teaching them young, why this is not an okay way of, conducting business, doing work. We discussed earlier in the week, this was later in the week, once they had started writing, earlier in the week we discussed all the different modes they can use to research: the internet, interviews, primary sources, books, music, videos, encyclopedias, reference materials. We talked about every single type of way they can conduct research to get that in their heads. We experimented with Diigo, and I showed them how they can highlight other websites. Diigo will store them all, and they can just in one page have all of the research that they have compiled online, so they don't have to keep going back and forth to all different websites and, oh, where did I find that? No, where did I find this? And not only, in Diigo, not only does it give you the areas that you highlighted, it also tells you what site it's from and stuff, so you can create the necessary works cited information from that. So we talked about that. We also talked about what it meant to conduct valid and authentic research, so that you aren't conducting research from, bobswebsite.com, where it's just, the ramblings of Bob and what Bob thinks about love, because that doesn't really have any merit, and it's not going to help you write a really well-researched paper. So I told them to try to stick to websites that ended in .edu or .gov. I told them to be careful with .orgs and to especially be careful with .coms. But I gave them a good list of websites where they could find some valid research. We also talked about biases on websites and how that can affect the validity of research. We talked about authenticity, and not only the authenticity of research, but the authenticity of their voice when they're writing, how it's important for them to have an authority of voice while they're writing a paper so that the audience believes that they know what they're talking about. So that, if they've become the expert on family love, they aren't, saying things in there that are like, well, I don't really know what dads tend to think about love, but here's what moms think, that they've really been very deliberate in the way that they've set up and written their piece so that they sound as professional as they possibly can. And every day before we started talking about this, we sang the Seasons of Love theme song. which is all about loving people no matter what, and like true love is love for the whole world. And it was really nice, and the students really got into that. And today on Friday, after we had been practicing singing the song all week, I let them dress up, select characters from the original lineup that sings the song, so that there's all different kinds of characters. There's like, because people come from all different walks of life. There's like a homeless person and an actor and a filmmaker and a rock star and a mom and a dad and a guidance counselor, and there's all kinds of people. And so they came into school today dressed up as those characters, and they filmed their own Seasons of Love line, and I flip camered it, filmed them singing Seasons of Love, and it was really, really cool. They really got into it. They really became the characters and felt like the meaning of the song, and they were having a big discussion about how much it means to them and what the song's saying and why, it's so symbolic and important for all different kinds of people to be together in one single line, singing together about love and what that means. The quick writes this week all had to do about different kinds of love and different quotes to get them thinking about both their research project and just the theme of love in general. So everything went really well. It's probably one of the hardest assignments they've had so far, but they're ready for it. I can't wait to see what they produce on Monday when they turn it all in. Social studies, we were doing events that led up to the Civil War. So Monday we talked about Lewis and Clark. Tuesday we talked, well, it was mostly expansion this week, actually. Next week, which is the beginning of the Civil War unit, starts more with antebellum, which I'm going to explain in a second. But this week we did Lewis and Clark, Florida, Texas, Mexico, Oregon, and the Gadsden Purchase. So all the rest of the expansion in the United States. We did the Gold Rush and Manifest Destiny. And we did inventors like Eli Whitney and McCormick and Fulton. And today we did abolitionists and women's rights people. So, Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass and Sojourner Truth and Susan B. Anthony, people like that. So, and over the course of the week, based on all the notes they were taking and all of the stories we were telling during class, they were charged to write a descriptive narrative that in a creative way, they weaved together all of these notes into a fictional descriptive narrative so that I could assess their understanding of certain parts of the lecture, and they got to choose which parts of which lectures they used, but they had to use pieces from each of the different lectures and class activities and stuff, and they turned those into days, so I'll be reading those over the weekend along with their writer's notebooks. Reader's logs, once again, this week are due Monday, so I'll get to see those along with their love pieces on Monday. Next week, like I said, is the beginning of my 4-week unit on Civil War, and we're starting the military game again, which they're really excited to do. Have all the rules, have all the new symbols, because we're doing Navy this time instead of Army, so there's new ranks, new insignias, new rules, new fun. They're going to be really excited. I have 24 days left, and 23 of them are going to be playing the game, so it's just going to be my very last day where we're not playing the game anymore. But the first week is going to be antebellum, so it's going to be the 1850s, and we're going to talk about slavery and the secessions, and Lincoln's inauguration. And then the second week will be the early battles of the Civil War, so 61 and 62 and going into 63. And then third week will be the rest of 63, all of 64, and all of 65 battles. And then week 4 is going to be Reconstruction. And then my final week that I'm there with the kids, we're just going to kind of have like a fun, awesome week. We're going to finish up presentations from Civil War on the Monday. On the Tuesday, we're going to have a recording day where we record together all of the music that we've sung so far this spring, just like we did in the fall, so that they can have a CD of their spring as well. And I'll be passing out all the DVDs we've been making of different projects throughout the spring. Wednesday, we're taking a class field trip to celebrate like the end of, our time together and stuff. And it's going to be a fun day. And then that Thursday, I have some very interesting plans in the work for my official very last day with the kids. So it's going to be a really powerful, really awesome day. They're excited about all of this. Like I said, they can't wait to get into the Civil War. Everything's been going really great. So it was another really good week, and I can't wait to go back, hang out with them again next week. Thank you.